Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new broadcast. Everything great is simple. Therefore, in essence, it is very easy to walk the spiritual path, the path of the soul. You just need to be obedient and follow the instructions from above. That's all. No more and no less. Then you will ascend with certainty, however the circumstances look like in which you live. In his great work, Resurrection, Tolstoy describes with wonderful words his revelation. Man must follow the will of God. Then he will attain the state of salvation for himself and for human society as a whole. When he had read the Sermon on the Mount, which had always touched him, he saw in it, for the first time today, not beautiful abstract thoughts setting forth, for the most part exaggerated and impossible demands, but simple, clear, practical laws. If these laws were carried out in practice, and this was quite possible, they would establish perfectly new and surprising conditions of social life. In which the violence that filled him with such indignation would cease of itself. Not only this, but the greatest blessing that is obtainable to man, the kingdom of heaven on earth, would be established. The Master's will is expressed in these commandments. If man will only fulfill these laws, the kingdom of heaven will be established on earth, and man will receive the greatest good that they can attain to. Today we will be talking about this exercise of obedience. Let us start with a short repetition to make sure that we all know where we stand. You remember the 10 pillars of the practice of Agni Yoga? We had discussed in the last 3 broadcastings the threefold spiritual discipline, namely defense of the higher consciousness, rhythm of the day, and nourishment according to spiritual principles. In today's and the following 2 broadcastings, we shall turn to the 3 principles of a spiritual life, namely obedience, living in 2 worlds, and selflessness. The old man has lost the consonance with the cosmic order. He fancies to be entitled to give himself his own laws and to be allowed to unscrupulously pursue his small, limited personal interests. This attitude has dreadful consequences for the planet. Our age suffers from the fact that people no longer believe in a higher law and in binding instructions from the upper world. It is not long ago that at least our leaders knew that they were installed due to the grace of God and are responsible to Him. We ought to obey God rather than man. The much ridiculed and misunderstood term sin means nothing else than a violation of the cosmic order. Humanity grows weak to such an extent because it evidences disunion with the highest will. Our higher mission requires that we adapt to the current of the evolution of the spirit. Evolution is the plan of God for the earth, for man, and for cosmos as a whole. To this higher will, we have to submit unconditionally. There exists only one law which governs the entire cosmos, the higher will. Along this line, the evolution of the spirit is created. This is the only way out for today's suffering, baseless, insecure, and wavering humanity. Only the realization of the higher will can lead the spirit toward its goal. It is only by carrying out the divine will on the material level that man fulfills his task as a co-worker of evolution. Man is the creative fulfiller of the cosmic will. Without obedience, there is no progress. Thus, let us apply the higher laws to the earthly plan. You are on the spiritual path if you no longer live as you please, according to your moods, but if you allow the personal to be dissolved into the higher, the greater. If you give up your own will and submit to the divine will. So, Jesus says, "Thy will be done, as in heaven, so on earth. For I came down from heaven not to do mine own will, but the will of him that sent me." And Agni Yoga personal desires are transformed into the all-guiding universal will. That is how cooperation with the distant worlds develops. Obedience means living rightly, disobedience wrongly. The latter leads to suffering. Live aright today, and tomorrow will be right. Live wrongly today, and tomorrow will surely bring you remorse and discouragement. People must learn that they harm themselves when they do something that violates the cosmic law. For example, selfish acts, cruelty to animals in industrial farming, abortions, wars, etc. When you violate the law, you bring violation upon yourselves. Only themselves can they injure. Every soul should order his life according to higher law. To obey means to live in harmony with the cosmic order and your own mission. Only thus you can act successfully. Every disobedience is a violation of this order, which inevitably leads to chaos. In addition to the principle of infinity, or applied to us humans of the immortality of the soul, the principle of hierarchy is the second fundament of the new world. The new man must recognize the hierarchy of the soul, which ranges from the blade of grass to the Christ and beyond. He must take his place in this line of development. The laws of cosmos imperatively require the subordination of the lower under the higher, of the small under the great. Verily, the sign of belonging to the sixth race will be the acceptance of the law of the highest leadership, the acceptance of hierarchy in all its magnitude. Without integration into the hierarchy, there is no construction of the new world and no fulfillment of the human mission. In the temple of hierarchy, every single little stone has a function only by its place in the larger structure. So, if you want to take your place, you have to confidently assume the leadership of the Mahatmas, who alone know the plan of the whole construction, and therefore your place within it. How can we expect to build anything strong if we do not accept the irrevocable indications of hierarchy? The guiding hand is the uplifting hand. The whole hierarchy, from the lowest up to the highest levels, is built upon the principle of obedience. Obedience is the foundation, without which no hierarchy can exist. Everyone must be fitted in. He who does not want or is unable to achieve this has no place in a hierarchy. A hierarch is a link of a chain, and one who fulfills the will of a higher one. Only thus can one respond to the higher assignment. Only obedience can make sure that the higher will is passed down from the highest point through the many intermediary steps of the ladder, down to the lowest everyday level. Here, the higher will is converted into material reality. Disobedience interrupts this flow of the higher will. The chain of hierarchy is built by fulfillment of the higher will. The law of the hierarchy states, the higher levels take the lead and the lower ones follow. Only contact with the higher can give the direction. If, as it is unfortunately often the case on Earth, we allow the lower levels to guide us, it is chaos that reigns. This severance from the higher and submission to the lower, in other words, equation with the lower, is the menace of our time, and it is leading towards the deterioration of our planet and its possible premature destruction.